Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to try something completely new. I have not tried this at all. I really do hope that it works and it replaces all other dopping solutions for me. But what it is this Polymer Repair Compound. It's basically a putty that, well, they say that it can repair metal, wood, glass, concrete, ceramics and most plastics. So we're going to see if this can attach a nice boulder opal. I've picked two that have really thick ironstone bars, so I can cut it down, worst case scenario if all goes wrong. And yeah, we're going to see if we can dop it onto wood and onto metal because we like to use both. Wood's always great, but if you've got fingers that are feeling a bit sore from sandpapering opal, what you can do is, and I've explained this in previous videos, is put it onto a screw which you've pre-screw onto something like anything you want. But even if you've got like a hatchet handle, I've done that before, just so that you've got a really big grip, especially for those with any kind of arthritis. It's really helpful. So we'll test it on metal, we'll test it on wood like we do every possible dopping solution. And yeah, see if it matches up to some of the other options, because it sounds really good. Shapes like putty, sets like a rock. Sounds a lot like wax. It's meant to be pretty quick as well, so I really haven't tried it at all. I've just got the multi-purpose one. You can get an aqua one, which means you can use it underwater, but in this case we're going to let it set and then we're going to chuck it in water. So this one's also the quickest, so it hardens in 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm going to rip this open and we are going to get straight into it and see how it goes. Alright, so all I've done here is cut a segment off the tube and repackage the rest. So it's got these two compounds, so it's like a two-part epoxy. And all I need to do is mash this. It said not to get in contact with skin, and I will say this stuff stinks. Not a huge fan of the smell either, so gloves are probably wise. And we just want to mash them together so that part A and B just mix up. And then once we get it looking fairly consistent, we'll chuck it on both opals and see how we go. Alright, so here we are. It's looking fairly consistent now. It feels a lot like blue tack, maybe a little bit softer than blue tack, but it's a nice even kind of grey. Now we won't need as much for the smaller opal and screws, so I'll just take maybe a third of that away and then use the other 2/3 for the other piece. And we should just be able to mold this into place. So I'll just chuck it on the screw, give it a good squidge, put the other piece down there for the moment, and then just grab this boulder and, similar to what we do with wax, we'll just get it on there. Now this stone would dot really well with wax or super glue or epoxy. Boulder opal like this I find dops incredibly well. It's slightly porous on the back, really beautifully flat, and all of the adhesive that I usually use would glue onto this no problems at all. So we'll see how this putty stuff goes. And instead of standing it up on its end with some blue tack like I would normally on a smaller opal, I'm just going to put that face down. Now the other one, we'll chuck it on some wood. So this is a beautiful cheap as chips free dop stick. It's just the chopsticks that I haven't split in two yet. So pair of chopsticks still combined. We'll chuck this on the end here. Grab our boulder and just mold it into place. Make sure it's really contacting well. Probably used way too much here. We'll keep to standard principles and not spread the putty out over the edges if possible. It is very workable, and it sounds a little bit tacky on my gloves, and it is a little, but it's honestly not that bad. But there you go, it's pretty flush, pretty attached. If that hardens and sets, it might be a perfectly good dot. So I'll put him there as well. And we will leave both of these for a while and come back to them hopefully when they've cured. We'll check in 5 to 10 minutes. Alright, it's been 10 minutes on the dot. And the stuff is actually... oh, it's hard, but I can, if I push real hard, sink my fingernails into it. So I don't think it's fully cured after 10 minutes, but it must be pretty close. And it does feel like it's locked on pretty strong. I want to leave it overnight just to give it its full potential. But that actually feels like it's gripped on quite well. This is when you start panicking and thinking, will it actually come off? Alright, that's definitely... I'd be confident to get the rotary tool onto it. I don't know if I would chuck this on a cabbing machine like this at the moment, just because I'm a bit cautious that I can sink my fingernails into it. But I reckon in terms of carving, this is probably a strong enough bond. Yeah, no, I'm giving it a good push here, and it's on solid. Okay. Well, this is exciting. We'll fast forward. I'll leave these overnight, and I'll come back and check on them in the morning, and we'll see if they're... I mean, by then it's definitely going to be at its full strength. So I'll leave it till then, and then we'll come back, have a look at them, and see if we can get them apart. Well, good morning, I'm back. Just before work, I want to have a look at these. Now, they are definitely harder. I can't sink my fingernails into it at all. It is really, really locked in there on both the thicker one and the thin one. So, it really is just hard as a rock. Does what it says on the packaging then. So now, the second half of being a good dopping solution is to be able to come off quite well. Now, it would be ideal if I could just apply a lot of pressure, more than what you would trying to carve it, and just snap it off, and it does feel like it's going a little. Alright, so it's got a bit of stretch to it, I guess, because I'm sure that was moving. I was certain I could feel it giving way. Oh, there we go. Alright, that's... so it's come off the metal rather than the back of the stone. So then, how easy is it? I can't find my typical wax dot remover, but I do have a screwdriver here which can get us out of a pinch every now and then. Alright, so it is really become part of the stone. That is interesting. So it might mean that you actually have to grind it off, which isn't the worst thing ever. It's a bit of an extra step and an extra hassle that I didn't really want to have to deal with. But at least I can pop it off the dot quite easily, and if you've got a set of wheels, you could grind that away quite quickly. I imagine it would be just as easy as grinding through ironstone. It's a little bit crumbly, so it could come off quite easily. I was hoping to just be able to slip this under the edge of it and pop it off, but it doesn't look like it. Let's see if the wood behaves similar to the metal and it can give way on it, or whether I'm going to snap the wood before it gives up. Alright, it seems to have gotten an even better bond, probably because it's a lot thicker. I reckon if it was a lot thinner we'd be okay. I also pushed this one so that the wood was basically touching, whereas here I kept the screw away from the surface a bit. So this one is properly bonded. Alright, this is not coming off easy at all. Oh. Alright, that is stiff as a rock. I'm probably gonna have to cut that free. But for now, I reckon I'll just keep this in a tub of water just for the day and see if that'll help loosen it, because that's a pretty good test as well. I'll chuck this one in the water as well just to see if we can get the back off. So I'll just submerge both of those in water and we'll be back at the end of the day and see if it's come free. Alright, back from work. This has been sitting in there the entire time. Let's give it some solid encouragement and boom, there it goes. That is beautiful. That has come straight off the ironstone. There's a tiny, tiny speck of it just there you can see, but look at that, it's come straight off. And that was not a gentle tug that I gave it there, it was a good hard twist motion. Boom, gone, that's exactly what I want. I reckon this one, if I'd pressed that screw in to be more flush against the bottom, it would have come off in a similar way. Let's see if I can just get the screwdriver in underneath it and maybe just pop it off. It doesn't seem like it's changed much with the water, so this one was soaking in there too, but it seems pretty unfazed. So definitely don't have to be worried about working with the water on the cabbing wheels or while you're carving on this one, because this has stayed submerged the entire time and it is still fairly rock solid. It's a little crumbly, but that's alright. I'm gonna have to cut this one off. But I reckon if I sat this one so that it was right up against it, I pulled it out just to see what would happen. I wanted to test both ways in slightly different ways to see what the best way would be. And I actually thought that this would compromise its strength, which I guess technically it has a little bit, but it held strong enough and it took a lot of force to get that off. So yeah, there you go. I think that's the way to do it. Very, very similar to dopping wax. It was probably strong enough to use after 10 minutes. So it's still not as quick as the dopping wax. It's more on the time scale of the epoxy resins. But all in all, I think for the price, I probably wouldn't adopt it. So this tube, this one here, is like, I don't know, I think it was $8 Australian. So I think in terms of cost, I can get a lot more dops done with the epoxy resin. It's probably on par-ish with wax, but another thing is this isn't going to be able to be reused now. So I'm going to cut this off the stick and reuse the stick, but this I can't just melt back down and reuse. It's been mixed, it's like the epoxy, it's a two-parter, mixed, it's cured, it's set, and now it's just destined to be cut off and chucked in the bin. So definitely can't get a lot of use out of it, which means it's not really cost effective. But it was actually, for some reason, if you can get this stuff really cheap, it would be worth considering to use if it's what you can get a hold of, and you can get a hold of it for a good price. So I am pleasantly surprised with that. I don't think I'll use it very often, but I'll keep it as a backup, and it could definitely be used for dopping. It's just the cost that would be the only reason I wouldn't do it. It's probably slightly quicker than the epoxy, a lot slower than the wax, but it comes off okay, except for this one. So just got to make sure that your dop stick is pretty flush up against the stone, which really is the way you should go anyway. This was just a bit of a trial to see what would happen if there was a thick blob on the back of a stone. And yeah, thick blob is hard to get off. So I will not be using this full time. It's not in my top 3. I'd still put wax, 2-part epoxy, and super glue above this, but at least it's not like hot glue. This one will actually definitely work, and I am pleasantly surprised. So another tested method, and I'm sure I'll be bringing more to the channel in the near future, including wax, but it's turned out to be really hard to get a hold of, harder than when I stopped buying it in. So more than ever I would be leaning towards using epoxy, or if you want a quick dot, super glue. So there's a little experiment, my thoughts on it, and yeah, let me know if any of you viewers actually use this kind of compound to do any dopping, because it does definitely work, but you need a reason to be able to get it cheap enough to make it worthwhile, I think. So yeah, let me know, I am interested. I think someone suggested trying it out and I finally got around to it, so I'll see you in the next video.